This is Carol Pilkington, spiritual trainer, teacher, and mentor, and I'm with Chris Roush, Kick-Ass Guide to Life Coach, and Audra Irwin, High on Life Coach. We're here to talk about forgiveness. So I have a lot to say about it, and I'm going to hold off for a little bit, so I'm going to let one of my two compadres talk about it, and so I won't be controversial at first. And we can't see Audra, but she is here with us, talking to us, so bear with us.
Yeah. All right, I'll start. I forgive my camera, my computer, for being a douchebag and not letting my camera work so that I can, you know, hang out with you guys. There.
And you are forgiven. You are forgiven, my dear.
Well, it's not me. It's the computer.
All right, well, I'll get things kicked off. Hi, I'm Christopher Roush. I'm the creator of the Kick-Ass Guide to Life, and coming to you live here from our office. And we're three sides of the coin, and we're here to talk about forgiveness today. And like Carol mentioned, forgiveness is something that we naturally need to do in our lives in order to have kick-ass lives, to have authentic lives. And so we're bringing you this today to be able to help you understand more about forgiveness and how it plays a role in your life so that you can go on and living without so much resentment towards what other things have happened in the past with relation to you or relation to people in your life. So we're looking forward to having a great discussion today about those different things and what forgiveness is and what it means to different people and how we forgive and what things we're willing to forgive versus things we're not willing to forgive, and just talking about just having the conversation of different things. I know we've all had experiences in our life where we've come across where we've had to forgive ourselves, or maybe we haven't, so we're looking forward to entertaining you today with that information and providing you with some insight from three different aspects from three different people. Carol.
Thanks, Chris. Well, I'm going to kind of blow the lid off of that here. This is something that I've been thinking about and exploring and contemplating for a long, long time. And it actually leads back to what we talked about last week, which was, so for me, there is no such thing as forgiveness. I don't believe in it. I don't practice it. To me, it's a Judeo-Christian concept, and that's fine. It's a belief system for anybody out there that believes in forgiveness. That's fine. But for me, I can't bring myself to forgive somebody that's either raped me or murdered somebody that I really love or done something of an egregious nature. However, I can, in time, come to acceptance of what they did, who they are, and so forth. Because for me, acceptance trumps forgiveness, in that over time, I understand being a human being on this planet, learning to be more conscious, that if I can accept who I am and what all the things that make up who I am, I can begin to accept others wholeheartedly for where they're at in their life, the lessons that they've come in to learn, and so on. So if I accept somebody, I have to accept them fully and wholeheartedly. And when I can accept somebody, then forgiveness doesn't even come into the equation. I accept that they are who they are, that they've done what they've done, but I don't have to forgive them for it. I think this is a huge area in which people tend to have a great deal of struggle with regards to feeling guilty, feeling resentment, feeling anger, and all those things that come into play with regards to the subject matter. And it's a very difficult place to come to. And a question that people ask, why should I forgive a person that's done ... Or why should I forgive myself? What am I forgiving myself for? If I accept who I am, then where's the forgiveness? What's the nature of forgiveness? So that's where I come from. And I'm sorry to be so controversial on this, but That's where I'm at.
And I wouldn't even apologize for that because there's so much truth there. And honestly, I completely accept your perspective, and I concur with it ultimately. You know, and I think that the more we evolve, you know, consciously, the more we are able to accept. And I mean, a lot of the masters and all of that, they're, you know, they're right there with you because they're like, well, there is no need for forgiveness because everything is as perfect as it is. So if you can look at the world that, you know what, this world is operating the way that it is for the higher of everything in the hierarchy, I mean, then there's nothing, then it's set as it is, then there's nothing to forgive, right? I mean, but to just kind of speak to the subject because it's not a lot of people can relate to that, although I think that you have totally brought up something to, you know, give people to think about and get a lot of people to think about. But you're so right. When you're in that place of acceptance, those other emotions can't exist. The anger, the all of that. You can't have that in the midst of acceptance because if you've accepted it, then you don't have to juggle those bags of those emotions. However, you know, there's a lot of people that it's a big damn thing for them, Carol, and they aren't near to that place. Like, how can I possibly accept this? And I think part of getting to that level of acceptance is maybe going through that forgiveness process. So it does serve, right? It serves for some people to go through that. I personally had to go through my own journey with forgiveness, and honestly and ultimately, I think the whole subject of forgiveness doesn't boil down to anybody but the self, because everything is within yourself, right? So for me, it was like, it wasn't so much letting other people off of the hook as quote unquote letting them off of the hook and forgiving them for supposed wrongdoings, but we all have a role in that, right? And so for me, it was like, well, what part of me needs, you know, to forgive myself that I put up with maybe treatment that I shouldn't have, rather than being the victim and needing to seek forgiveness from the other person, right? So I know that that was huge for my transformation, and first and foremost, self-forgiveness, you know, and in that self-forgiveness can open up the layer to acceptance. So what about you, Mr. Roushy Poo?
It's very interesting to get the different perspectives already on what forgiveness means, because Carol, you brought up a very interesting point in coming out with the religious aspect, and that's one of the questions I had for you guys is, do you think forgiveness is related to religion? Because if you type in forgiveness in Google, a lot of stuff comes up with how it relates to stuff that's been said in the Bible, and coming from a person who's not particularly religious in that aspect, I find it interesting that came up. But for me, I look at it, you know, forgiveness is based on the fact that our expectations for something were not met. And we expected, you know, a person to perform in a certain way, and something changed in that particular respect, and it didn't happen. So we were hurt, or our standards weren't met. And then we come to a crossroads where we have to decide, okay, am I willing to understand that situation happened for a particular reason for me to understand myself or understand other people differently, or did it happen so that I can move on? And like you guys were saying, you know, everything happens for a reason. But for me, I know that I broke it down when I was thinking about this conversation, was either I have to forgive myself for certain situations, or I have to forgive others. And I broke that down into, you know, family, friends, or, you know, public figures. I mean, something that popped into my mind, as crazy as it sounds, is public figures like Mel Gibson. You know, Mel Gibson was one of my favorite actors, and he came out and he said all these racial things that I do not agree with whatsoever. And when I was thinking about this conversation, I thought, do I forgive him for what he said? And no, I don't. I actually don't watch his movies anymore. It's like I don't forgive him for having that type of attitude and that behavior as a public figure. He's entitled to his beliefs and to do whatever he wants in his private life. But I decided in that situation I don't forgive him. So for me, I looked at it, okay, what are my standards and what am I willing to accept? And for me, if it's within myself, it's important to identify, okay, I screwed up, because I in the coaching that I've done, we tend to beat ourselves up a hell of a lot more than anybody else is going to beat ourselves up. It's like, oh, I can't forgive myself for the time I cheated on my wife when I was 18 years old. I can't forgive myself the time I stole cookies in the grocery store. I can't, all those different things. And what quality of life does that lead? So I ask you guys, how do you break down forgiveness? I mean, is it accepting the situation, or is it saying, hey, I forgive that person for not knowing any better at that particular point in their life, and now I'm going to give them another chance? What do you guys think?
Well, I think, oh, go ahead, Carol. You go.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sister Mama. You have the floor. I give it over.
Forgiveness, as you've been talking about it, if I look at it from the perspective that you are presenting it, is a very subjective matter. Mm-hmm. It's all based on our own standards of living and what life should be and how others should be. And we're not really looking at the other and accepting other as other. We're still not accepting what is. And in that place, objectively don't forgive another for whatever they do, say, or how they be in life. So the process that I have gone through with forgiveness and acceptance and that whole thing is, first of all, I'm a Virgo, so the opposite of Virgo is Pisces, and that whole duality there represents the sadomasochist in us. And so I was always thinking that I did something wrong, or that I said something wrong, and I was always looking for acceptance and forgiveness. Oh, please forgive me for this, that, and the other thing. So I had to go through my own process about it myself. And as I've looked at it more deeply, I've realized that forgiveness is so subjective, and it only was looking to serve me and how good I would feel after I either forgave or asked for forgiveness. But when I accepted, the word acceptance for me encompasses everything. It informs me that I fully accept everything that's going on. I accept everything as is without any alteration whatsoever. And it gives me the freedom to move on and put a big period at the end. So that's my take on that.
Awesome. Well, so my take is that and being the High on Life coach even, is like everything is energy. Everything is about your vibration. Everything is about how you feel. And so whatever tools are necessary to shift that, so be it. So forgiveness could be a tool for somebody as a means to shift their energy blocks around their disappointments, around their failed expectations, and all of those things. So, like Christopher, I agree with you, Carol, in the whole acceptance thing too. But it's like, because anytime, like, what's his name that you were talking about? Mel Gibson, right? So, like, here's the deal. You got some energy around that, right? So, you're like, no, I can't forgive him. That was, but you're carrying that energy. So what that does is that perpetuates the cycle, and people don't realize that. So it's not about, like, I forgive him and that, like, some people associate forgiveness with the opposite acceptance that Carol's talking about. Like, if I forgive, then that means I've indicated that somehow that his behavior was acceptable, right? Some people associate forgiveness with, if I forgive, then that is giving a permission slip for the other person, or that their behavior was acceptable, versus just accepting, that we all are on this plane having different experiences. It's the contrast that presents itself for us to discern, not judge, our own personal preferences and live from a space of an alignment with that. But the more we judge and we inflate ourselves and point fingers and make wrong, we're perpetuating that energy cycle to continue. So I think if we want to broach the subject of forgiveness as like a healing modality, right, in that we're all free, right? Energetically, it frees up that space. You know, it's like some people say, well, I can forgive, but I'll sure never forget, right? I can forgive, but I can't forget. Well, guess what? You really haven't forgiven, because when you say, well, but I'll never forget, you still have that energy vibration around that. So you may as well be squirting Febreze on a turd, right? So, you know, it's like, it's just discernment. So take the gifts, right? So, okay, you know what? I forgive that person. You know what? That if we can look at the whole, going back to what Carol said about the whole acceptance thing, you know, that if we can come from that place of seeing, you know, I can accept, you know, sorry, I totally saw a squirrel. Somebody typed in a message and I got sidetracked. But if we can just see, you know, oh, fuck, I lost it because I got sidetracked. I accept that I got sidetracked. Damn it, I hate that. So people, save your comments, can you please, because I'm distracted. Yeah, all right, somebody else, because I've lost it. Somebody typed a comment. I don't know if you want to read it and see what's up.
Well, I think I'll give you a second to gather your thoughts, Audra. I think I think
I was going with that, but
I think between the three of us, I probably take more of a traditional approach to forgiveness, and I'll give you guys an example. I mean, there's a lot of different examples I talked about, but one of them was when I was younger. I was married, and I had a best friend, and the situation was my best friend and my wife got together, not totally, but, you know, on my birthday, and had some relations and whatnot. And of course, my first reaction was anger and how could you do this to me, and this is how it affects me. And it was a very pivotal point in my life because the first reaction I had was to retaliate, to seek vengeance. Okay, you hurt me, now I'm going to hurt each one of you, and then I'm going to feel better because now we're going to be equal. And I don't know where it came from. It must have came from all the self-development books I was reading and everything. And I thought, you know what? Let me first understand what happened to cause that particular event that I'm reacting to. And maybe I have a part to play in what happened. And sure enough, as I was discovering through the conversation with my wife at the time, is I was not paying attention to her. I was caught up in my own world of going to school and going to work and working out and doing all these things while she was home alone. And of course, somebody was paying her attention, and it doesn't make it right, but it makes it more understandable for me to go, hey, okay, now I get what part of the play I had in having that happen, and now I have a choice. I can be vengeful, or I can say, hey, this is something I've learned out of this particular situation. This has never happened before. They're sorry. It's not going to happen again, and we move on. And it was a very poignant point in my life because, you know, everybody, my friends were saying, you know, God, I would kick his ass and I would do this and I would divorce her. And it's like, well, you got to do different things in different moments of your life. You don't know until you've been there. And I can look back on that situation now, and I believe in karma. My thing is karma. You know, what goes around comes around. And I chose to take the high road, and ultimately the marriage didn't make it because we were young, and we're still great friends. And actually, they are still friends too, which is interesting. Not in that respect, kind of. I don't know. We don't want to go into too many details. But I learned that to forgive, in my sense, healed me, and it also made me more aware of when people have forgiven me, because I've screwed up lots of times in my life where, you know, different friends or spouses or family or have forgiven me for doing something, my work, you know, I do something stupid. So for me, it's really about a discovery process and what we're willing to accept of ourselves and other people, because there is that point where, okay, you know, shame on me once, you know, shame on me twice, I'm going to come back and kick your ass. So for me, it's like, okay, what's that process feel like? And to learn from that, I guess that's kind of like the gist of it for me in a way.
Right. Okay. So yeah, and that's kind of what spawned what I was going to say before, is that if we can get to that place where we recognize that each individual is really and truly doing the best they can with what they know in that moment, based on past circumstances, based on stuff that we don't even know. We don't have a microscope into Mel Gibson's life and what. I'm not making excuses for him. That was totally unacceptable. I'm just using that as an example, right? Of that we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. You know, and it's, I swear, you know, you think about times when when you have laid blame or judgment or, you know, disgust or whatever around an individual, and then you find out, oh, what, you know, had happened to this child, you know, and not that it discounts their behaviors or their actions, but, you know, it's that thing about compassion, right? I mean, it's like if we can just live off of those emotions, right? If we can just live off of compassion and acceptance and truth and forgiveness and, you know, and vibrate from that space, that's where love lives, right? The other space is all the other crap, the fear. Oh my gosh, you know, I'm going to get screwed over. Now I have to put a guard up because I don't want that to happen to me again. And we perpetuate cycles instead of using these emotions over here that heal and that transform and that end those cycles, right? And not invite them back in, not invite the repeat performances. Like, that's what we have to take responsibility for, is that our unforgiveness, if you want to call it whatever, our judgments, all of those things continue to fuel and feed the very thing we're judging against. Like, it's like, that is my huge, like, hot button. It's like, can you emit a frequency, you know, of something aligned more with love, please, and then watch the circumstances transform, right? So.
Right on, baby doll. I hear you. One of the things that you brought up to me, Chris and Audra, was the concept of remorse. When somebody truly understands and takes responsibility for something that they have said or done and is remorseful about it and apologizes for it, and I can feel that it's true and genuine, accept their apology fully and honorably, and I can let that instance go and go from a clean slate. And so again, it's got nothing to do with forgiveness from me. And I do understand what you're saying, Audra and Chris. Everybody has to go through that process of what forgiveness and acceptance means to them. I had to go through it myself. So I'm not discounting it or making it seem like it's a small thing by any means. But I think one of the things that you touched on, Audra, which is being in that place of acceptance and compassion, even, which is a word that we haven't touched upon yet, and that kind of is in there in and of itself, is love. When we can get to that place of full acceptance, therein lies love. In fact, I have a kind of a book title going that says, "Acceptance is freedom, is the path to freedom and love." So that's my title. Don't steal it, anybody out there. but yeah.
I love that. And, you know, and so going back to the whole love thing, it's like, can we just build a case for people instead of building a case against them, right? I mean, you collect all this evidence to reinforce, you know, ooh, they did that. But you know what? Like, how about checking in with all the great things that individual has done? You know, and this is so awesome. There's a tribe in Africa, I think it's Africa, where if somebody does something wrong in that community or something, they have to go to a circle. And everybody in that circle stands there and reminds them of every good thing that person ever did until they had cleared them all out, until everybody had said, and it's like, because basically what they're doing is they're reminding them of the truth of who they really are. And from that space, like, that people heal and transform. Like, if we could do that with our prison system, if we could do that with all of these other things, right? And it's like, build a case for them and reinforce the good. We reinforce the bad and then wonder why freaking shit's still sucking in the world, right? And so I just say, let's start building, you know, a case for people. And, you know, and that tribe in Africa has very little crime because of this practice, right? So it's like, how can we apply that in our own life, you know? How can we apply that right where we are? So even to ourselves, you know, to ourselves, including ourselves, you know, like, build a case for us of what makes us a good person. You know, we tend to find that one fault or something, and we dwell on it, you know, and so yeah. Anyway, that's that for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, Audra. It's something interesting because I was thinking about, you know, criminals in life and whatnot, and thinking, did I unmute my mic? Yeah, I did. And thinking about, okay, you know, we criminalize people and saying, okay, you're bad, you're not good, and unless they're forgiven for what they've done and they've done their time and they've made their apology, if we don't do that for them, then what are they going to do? They're going to be like, okay, well, I guess I'm not that good. Their own self-confidence is going to go away, and they're going to be like, well, I guess this is the only thing I know how to do, and I'll just be, you know, self-protectionist, if you will, and be like, okay, well, I guess this is the only thing I got to do, so I'm just going to fight for myself. And I think what you're saying is, I've talked to people who've done really bad things, and they're like, Chris, I'm sorry for what I did. I didn't know any better based on my situations. And you guys brought up a good point earlier, is we don't know, relating to another part where I had to forgive somebody in my life, which is my mom. I never forgave her for a long time for putting everything else before me. It was like, you know, the cats and her and everything else, and I was last, and I was always there to take care of her. And it wasn't until toward the end of her life where I forgave her, because I realized that had I been in her shoes and gone through her experiences and felt the things she felt, I might have acted in the same way she did based on her chemistry and the things that she went through. So that's why I look at things when people judge, like, oh, well, those people shouldn't be doing this or those people shouldn't be doing this. The first thing I say is, how do you know they should or shouldn't be doing it based on what it is that they've been through in their life? So it's really interesting, and that's the perspective I've taken on it. Is I've always been a seek first to understand kind of person. It's like, okay, let me understand what it is that you did or where you're coming from, and it's helped me really release a lot of that anger and that, okay, well, and also being able to say, you know what, well, that's not for me, and I don't need to associate with it. But one thing you said, Carol, that I thought was interesting is the apology. You know, it's so interesting. Somebody can come back and say, oh yeah, I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry I got caught, you know, versus I'm sorry I did this. And Randy Pausch, the guy with that did the last lecture that had the pancreatic cancer, he taught me something so important. And he said the apology has 3 parts. I'm sorry, it was my fault, what can I do to make it better? And when I get those kind of apologies from people who have done something that I might not forgive so easily, then I can really see that emotion in their eyes and be able to say, okay, you know what, they did fuck up, and I know I've been in that situation where I've screwed up, and it's like, listen, I'm sorry I acted, you know, inappropriately. Here's what I'm going to do to make it better. Our relationship means something, my job means something, this means something. So that's kind of the way I look at it, and ever since I've done that, and I've been like that for most of my life, I haven't carried a lot of anger around with me. It's like, okay, you know, that happened, and here's how we're going to move on for it. But I think the biggest problem that I personally have, and I'm sure our viewers have, is letting it go for ourselves. It's like, I can still beat myself up every once in a while for something I did 10 years ago. It's like, Chris, you already paid that price. Move on. That kind of thing.
Yeah. I think, too, if we could just all mind our own business, like, honestly, like, if we could just mind our own side of the street, right? I mean, it's so easy for us to sit in judgment and you know, condemnation and, oh, they shouldn't be doing that, or how I can't even believe they did that. And it's like, well, what if we held up the mirror to ourselves and said, well, where in our life maybe do we need to check ourselves, right? Like, if we could just put that attention and that energy, you know, on our side of the street, clean up our side of the street, you know. But I think what happens is it's so, that's why, like, it kills my heart. Like, when I don't watch TV, I don't read the tabloid trash, but if I'm in the line at the store and I see, like, the tabloid trash and they're ripping on somebody's cellulite on their ass or whatever, I'm just like, are you kidding me? You know, and people want that because, you know why? At the end of the day, it makes them feel better about themselves. Well, oh, look at her. Ugh. Well, what if you just looked at you? What if you just looked at you and found love within you so that you could see love everywhere else? Like, it's like people do that because then they don't have to look at themselves. Somehow it gives them an inflation of, okay, my life's not so bad, you know, or you know, oh, look at them, and they don't have to take ownership of their own side of the street. So I just think if we just all could mind our own business a little bit more, you know, and stop talking smack about people. Like, that just hurts my heart. You know, people who rip on people, like, that just, I think that is just one of the, I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic of conversation.
I think that's great, Audra. I agree. If we minded our own business more, we wouldn't have the conflicts that we experience in life. And if we paid attention to our own indiscretions and our own growth and evolvement, we would be to see ourselves.
Did I lose you, Carol? Chris, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
We hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, I lost Carol. Sorry.
Yeah, Carol kind of went wiggy woggy.
Carol, you went in cyber zone.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So, did you guys hear what I said?
No.
At least?
No, not so much.
Really?
Part of it.
Okie dokie. So basically, I don't remember what I said. So what I'm saying is that I agree with you, Audra, with regards to what?
Minding our own business, you started to say.
Right, right. Could you mute your mic? Because the picture keeps bouncing back and forth as each of us talks. Okay, thanks. So yeah, I agree with you with regards to minding one's own business. Look inwardly more about the things that we judge about others. We're actually judging ourselves, and we've talked about that a couple of times before. And pay attention more to our own evolutionary process. There'd be a lot more love expressed in the world, and things would be a lot different. There'd be less conflict, and people would get along better. But I think it's so important that we do mind our own P's and Q's and take a look at what we're judging out there in the world and turn it more inward so that we can look at it. That's the whole process of being more conscious and aware of ourselves. Because if we're not aware of ourselves, we can't possibly be aware of others.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nope, you go. It's your turn.
Oh. We don't have turns, but what's interesting, I just realized something, because one of the things I had a question about was about kids, and where I'm always fascinated about the conditioning process that happens to us from the time we're born until the time we're about 5 or 6 years old, because that really shapes who we become and the agreements that we make in our life about what's going to happen. And I just realized none of us have kids. And I realized it's interesting, you know, where do we learn forgiveness? You know, it's like, okay, somebody on the playground took my ball, okay, oh, we'll learn to forgive them, forgive and forget, that kind of thing. And I think about some of those things, because last night I was going through something that the whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me is a complete bullshit. So I was thinking about that and where we learn forgiveness as a kid, and what we see in others, and how we learn, okay, either I'm going to be too forgiving. I mean, you see those people out there. I've coached people like, oh, yeah, I've forgiven my husband for cheating on me 5 times. You know, I know it's me. I know it's the color of my hair. And it's like, no, you're an idiot. Versus the people that never forgive. And I always go back to where it was in their childhood, where they just learn, okay, you know, I'm not going to get screwed over anymore, and I'm going to be the tough person, and nothing's ever going to happen to me. And I'm, you know, and it's amazing that, you know, you have 2 different areas. But then I thought about it. I'm like, we don't have kids. So, I mean, that's kind of interesting how we're having that. What do you guys think about, you know, where we learn forgiveness as kids? And I know, Carol, you're more of the accepting thing and what is, but where do you guys think that happens as kids for you? Do you remember childhood memories where you were told to forgive and you didn't want to forgive? Or, you know, where does that come into play for you guys?
Well, for me, my belief system is I think that we have very different personality dynamics. Some people's personality dynamic. I personally was born an empath. Like, I have, since I was 3 years old, I was more concerned with other people's feelings than my own. And you can't label me codependent at 3 years old. Kiss my ass. I'm sorry. Like, I remember I got spanked when I was like 3, and my dad even tells a story about it. And he had felt, I was crying because my little butt was on fire from getting my butt smacked. Because back in the day, we were allowed to get spanked. People don't freak out. And so I remember, like, I was crying because I had just gotten spanked, but I looked over and my dad, he just, like, had his hand in his head, and he looked like he was just beside himself that he had to spank my butt. And I went over to him and crawled up in his lap and gave him a hug and said, "It's okay, Daddy, it's okay." And he said that, like, ripped his heart out even worse, you know. Here I am comforting and consoling him. But I was a little, tiny little girl. So I personally think I was just born that way. I forgive, like, so easily, and I'm grateful that I have that nature inside of me, because I don't carry around toxic poison in my body, you know, that I do have. And, you know, and again, it's come with its own price, in that I am that girl who, you know, has been walked over, you know, more times than I care to admit, and go like, "Okay, Audra, when are you going to get the memo?" Because, like, truly, like, I don't just forgive and say I forgive, but have that "but I won't forget" thing going on. Like, I really, like, let it go. I don't carry it all. But I've learned in the process the gifts. And I think that's part of the whole message here, is it's like, let's just take the gifts from every experience, right? What did that teach me? It taught me to set healthy boundaries. It taught me it's okay to have that loving nature. And again, it also means loving myself enough to say, no more. This doesn't really work for me. I can still love you and send you well, and clear the energy around it that way. But I'm going to self-love as well, which is setting those healthier boundaries. But Chris, to answer your question, I think maybe a combination of upbringing, but I do also think a lot of it is just in our genetic makeup, or not even genetics. I just think it's our soul's DNA, our soul's blueprint, whatever, you know, lessons that we needed to learn or receive, or what gift we are ultimately to the world, and how it serves its place, you know, like, you're the kick-ass guy, and, like, you serve, right? Like, your dynamic so serves, you know, and so does mine, right? So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. What about you, Carol? What do you think?
I am in the same boat. I came into this world wondering and looking at the nature of love. And I, too, always felt that it was harder on my parents when they punished or spanked me or whatever, that it was more difficult for them than for what I received in the moment. And out of every relationship that I've been in, romantic or otherwise, the question that I always walked away with was, what can I learn from this? What do I need to learn from this lesson? And so I never walked away with strong feelings of, they did this to me, or they're bad because of. I always walked away with, what's the lesson here for me? What do I need to learn? And I always, from that perspective, I've always been able to accept over time who this person was, or that person was, or what was done or said. And it's just in me to come from a place of trying to understand not only my own nature, but the nature of others, and how we all interconnect and cooperate together. So I think it's part of upbringing, and also I agree with you with regards to what we come in to learn as our own lessons, the lessons that we come in to learn. My parents didn't talk about forgiveness a lot, but they did talk about always considering other, and so that was pounded into me, and that was just innately in me to begin with. But it was their motto was, be considerate of others and treat others as you would have them treat you, which is something that I don't agree with, and probably is another subject in and of itself, because if I'm feeling badly about myself or poorly about myself, is that how I want others to treat me? So that concept and that phrasing of consideration of others is not quite my thing, but I've come to learn over the years that it's different. But that's another subject entirely. So anyway.
Yeah. There's Are you familiar with Colin Tipping's book, Radical Forgiveness?
No.
Yeah, it's radical forgiveness, but to me, and some people are like, well, I don't know if I agree with that or whatever, but I do believe with the concepts in the book. I think it's a great book, and it also shifts your perspective and your energy. And I think that, anytime that you can see something from a higher perspective, you can see something, from a perspective that actually raises your vibration or soothes you around the situation, then it's transformational and it's powerful, and it's more aligned with truth personally than anything that is not. It talks about concepts in there about, like, ultimately we choose, believe it or not, some of these experiences that we're going to have for our personal growth. And if you can look at these people instead of, oh my gosh, whatever, that they are there, playing their role out perfectly to aid in our growth and evolvement spiritually in our soul's path. So it's a very interesting book. It's a whole nother way to look at, the subject of forgiveness and how possibly if somebody is really, really stuck and they're stuck in unforgiveness and they can't let it go, that's an awesome resource to explore as well.
And that's really good. I mean, being able to give people different resources for them to go out of this conversation with. And I think for me, thinking about the total forgiveness thing is not having any regrets. I look at my life, and I have two goals in life. One, to die without any regrets, and two, to stay the hell out of a hospital. And I think about, I never knew my biological dad, and lately I've been thinking about him again and wondering what he was like and wondering what the family was like, and just kind of having, not regrets, but a part of me wants to understand, why he didn't come around, or maybe that he came around and my mom didn't let him come around, or, what I want to know what it is. Because I don't necessarily forgive him. It's like, I figure in whatever happens in the next journey after we pass on from this particular existence that we're having, that maybe I'll understand that a little bit better because he's dead. I can't go ask him exactly, okay, where were you all my life? And maybe I would have been different in my life. But I accept, like you were saying, Carol, I accept that everything that has happened in my life has created the person that I am today. All the great and all the bad has created the person I am today based on the choices and the decisions I've made, because I've never fallen victim to what it is that I've been involved in. So I don't have any regrets, and I've forgiven myself for most of everything. I don't say everything, because there are certain things in my past that I would love to go back. And I was just telling somebody the other day, I became a bully in school for a little bit, and I picked on this one kid, and I wish I could go back and apologize for pushing him over because he didn't deserve it. It's like, I've forgiven myself in a certain respect because I stopped doing it, but for me, it's just about not having regrets. So my encouragement to you guys out there is to really think about, okay, would I regret not forgiving my mom or forgiving my sister, or learning and understanding more about what it is that was on their side, maybe so much like we were saying, mind our own business. And part of that is learning and understanding what other people feel about a certain situation. So I encourage you guys out there to really think about that and to go make those connections and understand what it is that maybe you guys can mutually do to strengthen your relationships, because at the end of the day, it's about relationships, and for me, not having any regrets. So those are kind of like my ending words a little bit, if you will.
Absolutely.
I think that's really great. I think it's really important to be able to complete cycles, and when we can't forgive, accept, or feel remorse and really express it in such a way that it's received, it perpetuates that cycle and keeps it in our minds and our heads. So the whole idea of evolution is to be able to, number one, complete cycles, become more self-aware so that we can become aware of others, and put a big old period at the end of each cycle. I think that's so incredibly important. Otherwise, it contributes to the monkey mind, the crew that never rests, the chatter that's in the brain, all those things that people are generally going through a lot of the time. Hey, Audra, there was some comments that you mentioned earlier. Can you read them?
I'm sorry, what? No.
There were some.
There was just, honestly, like a box popped up that said new comments, and of course my eye went there like a squirrel, and then but I can't read them now. I don't know how to access them. Oh wait, I can try. Oh yeah, I can read them now. Oh, it's you guys.
Oh, okay. So it's our chats. Okay, got it. That's what I thought. I wasn't sure, but I just wanted to make sure that anybody out there wasn't being heard.
You are the squirrels, you squirrel. It totally distracts me. But anyway, it's all good. But yay! I have so loved and enjoyed this topic, and I would just, my final thoughts around this too is to just honestly, if we look for the gifts in everything, we will find them. So instead of, you have to replace something with something. So letting go of unforgiveness and or whatever that is that you're holding on to. I mean, I say make your pen your friend, right? So take your pen, and Christopher, you are funny. I see that. I'm going to put the X out of that box. Okay. So I say make the pen your friend and write it out. Like, get it out of your person. Write an angry letter. Write down, who do you still have to forgive? Why aren't you willing to let this go? What do you need to forgive them for? What is it that you needed that you didn't get? What need ultimately was not met? How can you meet that now? But also, I would repack it with okay, what were the gifts that came from that? And sit with that. And after you've gotten all the poison out of your body, write out, okay, well, you know what? That relationship that I felt so like about that, gave me the gift of this. And oh my gosh, can't imagine, how much more empowered I am in my life now. Thank you for those treasures. And really, then you can come from that place of thanking the one person that you thought, you couldn't forgive, that you could actually get yourself to a place of thanking them because they actually aided in your growth. They were actually a gift, a lesson, and a teacher to help you grow to where you ultimately need to do. So I just say replace those old toxic emotions, with the truth, right? That's my thoughts. So I can't hear you.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
I have one thing to build on that, Audra, and I think you bring up a really good point because you're focusing on the positive. For me, I think you bring up something brilliant, is that we're looking at what other people are doing or not doing, and it's like, oh, well, okay, here's the 7 things that the person's doing that's pissing me off. Instead, you bring up an awesome point. Look at the 20 things that they are doing great. I mean, I coach a lot of people in relationships, and like, oh my God, they don't pick up after themselves. They leave the water running. They don't do that. It's like, okay, well, what do they do? Oh, they're honest, they're trustworthy, dependable, they're loving, they're committed. Okay, well, you know what? Guess what? We all have faults, and the sooner we not necessarily have to forgive, but the sooner we understand that we all have faults, and like we were saying before, let's take care of our own houses first. I think that's an excellent point, Audra, because I think we do get so cynical and, okay, well, why can't I have this and why can't I have this, when we really do have a lot and we don't know what we have until we're gone. So I just wanted to say bravo. I love that point.
Yeah, and you know what? It goes back to whole, are you going to build a case for them or against them, right? And so yeah. So yeah. I just love my tribe. I just love my compadres. I just love my Google posse. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate each unique quality that both of you possess, and that your perspectives that you bring. And I just so enjoy this platform, and I'm super grateful that we get to broach these topics and put them out there, and to provoke and evoke some thoughts, and into deeper conversations.
Yeah.
Deeper,
I wholeheartedly agree. You guys rock. You guys, and it's cool that we can do this. I mean, to be able to offer different perspectives on that, and hopefully the people that are watching this, whether they're watching it live or they're watching it on the rebroadcast, can take something away and kind of go, I didn't think about it that way. And that's why it's 3 different opinions from 3 different people who, at the end, ultimately respect each other and understand that we've all had different journeys, but that we're here to help each other. And that's the beautiful thing about having people like you say in your tribe. And I love you guys.
Yay!
Yay! I love you guys too, and it has been a wonderful conversation. It's really interesting because we never know where it's going to lead, or where it's end up, and it's always so enriching and thought-provoking for me. And I just love each of yours perspectives on things, and it's very helpful. It's enlightening, and it's such a joy to be here with all of you. And I just love you to death. I'm so glad that we are doing this, and I look forward to continuing it. And I hope you all enjoyed it out.
We'll see you
So
next
we'll keep you posted.
So we probably should let people know where they can get a hold of us, and after the fact, if they want to get a hold of us respectively and learn more about us.
Absolutely.
Good idea. Go for it, Chris.
Well, I'm Christopher Rausch. You can reach me at christopherrausch.com, R-A-U-S-C-H. Love to talk to you, and if you're interested in having a kick-ass attitude or an unstoppable attitude, I'm your guy, and I highly encourage you guys to connect with these two ladies because they're beautiful, they're awesome, they're genuine, and they're very kick-ass.
Yay! I love you. So I'm Audra Irwin, the High on Life Coach, and you can reach me at audrairwin.com. You can go to my website, audrairwin.com. You can drop me an email, audra@highonlifecoach.com. I also have the Happy Hour radio show, and you can download it from iTunes. And I just say live high on life. Find ways every day to raise your vibration. Pack all the happy emotions that align with love and truth, and that will ultimately lead you high on life. So happy weekend, happy Friday, and we'll see you next time.
And I'm Carol Pilkington. You can reach me at carolpilkington.com. I'm the spiritual teacher and mentor, and I work with people who are feeling disconnected and disenchanted and are maybe in some kind of life crisis or identity crisis. We tend to create this split between our spiritual beingness and our everyday livingness in the world, what we do in the world. We identify with what we do in the world versus just being who we really are. And a lot of us don't even know who that was. So I help people, I help really connect with their own true nature so that they can live more congruently in the world and be in that I amness all through life, no matter where they are, no matter who they're with. So thanks for joining us, and we're looking forward to seeing you in the next couple of weeks. And thanks, you guys. And don't forget to catch Christopher Rausch's radio show. Say it again, Chris.
Oh, the kickassradioshow.com. Yep.
Thank you. All right. See you all in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Audra. Love you guys.
Rock on.